Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपी कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये श्री राधे गोलोकानंद भगवान की जय।
जय।
हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mayu. All right, so back to Srimad Bhagavatam. तो कल हम लोगों ने 7वां अध्याय पूरा किया कैंटो 3 का, या एंड जैसा कि हम लोग जानते हैं there are 12 cantos, 12 books in Srimad Bhagavatam, and how many shloks total? Remember?
18,000.
18,000.
Yeah.
18,000.
Yes. So total 18,000 shloks in all 12 cantos together. And there are, do you know how many chapters are there? How many adhyayas? Yeah. So 332 chapters. Yeah. So we have completed 2 full cantos, and the third canto is in progress. In third canto is about the status quo. Essentially, we read the first 7 chapters where Mahatma Vidur is asking all these questions to Mahatma Vidur. And actually, if you see the last shlok which we read yesterday, yeah, what Sri Shukdev Goswami is saying is, thus the chief of the sages, and he is referring to Maitreya Muni by saying that, who is always enthusiastic about describing topics regarding the personality of Godhead, began to narrate the descriptive explanation of the Purans. Yeah, so that's what Maitreya Muni has started now explaining. And the chapter 8 is about manifestation of Lord Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So let's see how Maitreya Muni is explaining how Lord Brahma got manifested. So start Siksha Prabhuji.
मैत्र उवाच सतसेवनियो वत् पुरुवंशो यल्लोकपालो भगवत्प्रधानः बभूव विथेहाजित कीर्तिमालां पदे पदे नूतनयस्य भीक्षणम्. Translation: The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidur, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of the family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Anilji?
जी हाँ. सोहम नृणाम क्षुल्ल सुखाय दुःखम महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य प्रवर्ते भागवतं पुराणं यदा साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः. Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavat Puran, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So much mentioned in just the translation itself, right? And what Maitreya Muni is saying is, let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavad Puran. Yeah. Pravartaye Bhagavatam Purana, and which was directly spoken to the great sages. By whom? By the personality of Godhead himself. Yeah. It says Yadaha Sakshat Bhagwan Risabhyah is directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead. And why? For the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries, right? Surrounded by this material world for the sake of very little pleasure. So we find very little pleasure, small pleasure in the material world, but we are so entangled into this that we are not able to get out of this cycle of birth, death, disease, and old age. Yeah. So for the benefit of all of us, personality of Godhead has directly spoken to the great sages, and that's what we are also hearing. Let's read this purport, Soham.
The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties, simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications, under the false impression that the body itself is the self. The living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Soham. Yeah. But what is important mention here is only one who is fortunate enough and devoted can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah, in the association of the pure devotees of the Lord. Shivam?
They think that they can engage with material paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of the compassion for suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So that's the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mayur?
Asinam Urvyam Bhagavatam Adhyam Sankaranam Devam Kund Sattvam Vivitsa Vasta Tvamam Tvamta Parasya Kumar Mukhya Munyo Nava Pruchanam. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sant Kumar, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you, about the truths regarding Vasudev, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarsanam, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah, so what Maitreya Muni is telling Mahatma Vidur is that Sanat Kumars, and I think all of us read about the Sanat Kumars, right? When we are reading about all the avatars of Lord Vishnu, right? And the 4 Sanat Kumars, we know the different names, right? And they asked, and they were accompanied by the great sages, and they asked Lord Shankarshan. Yeah, Lord Sankarshan is uh, is essentially extension manifestation of Lord Vishnu himself. Yeah, so actually, if you see Lord Ram's avatar, right? Lord Ram is none other than Lord Vasudeva. Yeah, and Lakshman is Lord Sankarshan. So that's Lord Sankarshan. And actually, I don't know if you read about Pradyuman and Aniruddha. Bharat is Pradyuman and Aniruddha is Shatrughan. And like when Vasudeva, Lord Krishna is there, Lord Balram is Lord Sankarshan. So that is Lord Sankarshan. Seshnag, yeah, as you know. So, and Seshnag, it says, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. So, we'll read more about that. But in this shlok, basically all the Sanat Kumars are asking Lord Sankarshan, who is the extension of Lord Vishnu himself, the truth about Vasudeva. Yeah. And Isha, do you want to read this?
Yeah. This is in clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on the Srimad Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. Questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumar and Lord Shankarshan. The plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva answered them.
Right. Sachin?
स्वमेव तिष्णयं बहु मानयन्तं यद्वासुदेवा भिद माम अनन्ति प्रत्यधृताक्षाम्बुज कोशमिष दुन्मिलयन्तं विबुद्धोय याय. At that time, Lord Sankarsana was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of great learned sages, he slightly opened his lotus-like eyes and began to speak. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah. So actually maybe it's, we'll just read very quickly about Lord Sankarshan, right? Who is he? So let me bring up something. Let's just read this. And in the previous shlok, we saw like he's situated at the bottom of the universe. What is at the bottom of the universe? Like in this whole Trilok, Virat Shrok, right? The bottom of the universe is Patal, yeah? Below Prithvi. So let's just read this. Soham?
In this chapter, Sukdev Goswami describes Ananta, the source of Lord Shiva. Lord Ananta, whose body is completely spiritual, resides at the roof of the planet Patal. He always lives in the core of Lord Shiva's heart, and he helps him destroy the universe. Ananta instructs Lord Shiva how to destroy the cosmos, and thus he is sometimes called Tamasi, or one who is the mode of darkness. He is the original deity of material consciousness, and because he attracts all living entities, he is sometimes known as Sankarshan.
Right? So he's known as Sankarshan because he attracts all the living entities. Yeah? Just read Shivam.
The entire material world is situated on the hoods of Lord Sankarsana. From his forehead, he transmits to Lord Shiva the power to destroy this material world. Because Lord Shankar is an expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, many devotees offer him prayers. And in the planetary system of Patal, all the Suras, Asuras, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, and learned sages offer him their respectful obeisances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Isha?
The Lord talks with them in a sweet voice. His bodily construction is completely spiritual and very, very beautiful. Anyone who hears about him from a proper spiritual master becomes free from all material conceptions of life. The entire material energy is working according to the plans of Anantadeva.
Right. So Lord Sankarshan is also known as Anantadev. Yeah, Tarun?
Therefore, we should regard him as the root cause of the material creation. There is no end to his strength, and no one can fully describe him, even with countless mouths. Therefore, he is called Ananta, unlimited. Being very merciful toward all living entities, he has exhibited his spiritual body. Sukadeva Goswami describes the glories of Anantadeva to Maharaja Parikshit in this way. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. And we'll read more about this in Canto 5. Right. So this paragraph is from Canto 5. Right. We are at Canto 3 right now. It's good to know who Lord Sankarshan is. Yeah. Ajay?
स्वधुन्धुन्धन्य दार्द्वजे स्वजटा कलापै रूप स्पृशन्त शरणोपधानम पद्यम यद चंत हिराज कन्या सप्रेम नाना बलि भिविर राधा. The sage comes from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their head was wet. They touch the lotus feet of Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the Serpent King when they desire good husbands. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It says Swajata Kalape is basically saying the sages came from the higher planets and therefore their hairs was wet. Because how did they come? They come through the water of the Ganges. It says that the Ganges water is in the whole all over the planet. Actually, let's just read about this this purport. Sachin?
The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. Hare Krishna.
No. Mayur?
The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, right? So हमें काफी टाइम से पता है, right? गंगा जल का क्या महत्व है, and now we know why, right? Because the water of the Ganges, Ganga Jal, is coming directly from the lotus feet of the Lord directly. Yeah? Shivam?
If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself after committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So it's not just enough to take a bath. Then we have to also get rid of the sinful life. Yeah. So Ravi.
मुहुर् गृह्णन्तो वचसानुराग सखल स्खल पदेनास्य वृतानि त्रज्या किरीट सहस्र मणिप्रवेक प्रद्योति तदोद्दाम मणा. The four Kumaras, headed by the Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in the Adamic essence with the selected words, full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Shankarasan, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an affluence from the glowing stones of his head. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Right. So Sanat Kumar we know about. Yeah. So they started glorifying the Lord, Supreme Lord. So Lord Sankarshan, as we know, Sheshnag, thousands of raised hoods began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Yeah, it says here, Fana Sahastram. That's Sheshnag. Yeah. The next Tarun.
Proktam Khiletat Bhagavatamena Nivritti Dharma Bhiratyaya Tena Sanat Kumaraya Sat Kaha Pratyataha Prashtataha Sankhya Yanga Dhrata Vrataya. Lord Sankarshana thus spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also, in his turn, when inquired of by Sankhyayana Muni, explained Srimad Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshana. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So what Maitreya Muni is telling to Mahatma Vidur is how Lord Sankarshan spoke the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam to Sanat Kumars. Yeah. And then from Sanat Kumars, yeah, they spoke to Sankhyayan Muni. Okay. So that's how the Srimad Bhagavatam has been along. I just read this purport. Isha.
This is the way of the Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumar, the well-known great saintly Kumar, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sankhayana Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarshan. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge.
Right, so there are 9 ways of devotional service. It's given in Bhagavad Gita as well. Right, but 2 most important are hearing and chanting. Yeah. Jitendra.
Sankhayana Paramasakhamako Vikshano Bhagavato Bhuti Jagatso Smidruven Vitaya Parasharaya Bhagspestasha. The great sage Sankhayan was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master Parashar and the Brahaspati both heard him. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so see how it has been coming up. Lord Sankarshan, right, to Sanat Kumars. Sanat Kumars recited to Sankhyan Muni. Sankhyan Muni then describing to Parasar Muni and Brishpati. Yeah, Brishpati. Says Parashrayat Brishpati. So I think we will pause here, okay, and then we'll continue tomorrow with Shlok 9. Any comments, questions?
छोटा सा कमेंट है रिगार्डिंग मदर गांजेस। अभी मैं वो सेक्शन पढ़ रहा था भागवतम का, साइड में मेरा वो भी सेक्शन चालू है। उसमें भागीरथ जी से गंगा माँ स्पेशली पूछ रही हैं, मैं ठीक है, मैं प्यूरिफाई करने के लिए आ तो रही हूँ, लेकिन मुझे कौन प्यूरिफाई करेगा? वो एश्योरिटी चाहती हैं कि इतने लोग पाप छोड़ के मुझे मेरे अंदर जाएंगे तो फिर मुझे कौन प्यूरिफाई करेगा? तो भागीरथ जी ने कहा कि जितने भी ऋषि मुनि से भगवान के भक्त आप में स्नान करेंगे तो आप प्यूरिफाई हो जाएंगे।
क्या बात है।
तो चलते फिरते भागवतम है, भगवान के भक्त बड़े बड़े ऋषि मुनि गंगा माँ को भी शुद्ध करने का शक्ति रखते हो। हरे कृष्णा।
Krishna, thank you so much, Bobby.
Hare Krishna.
So we'll hear the nice kirtan and then we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, Krishna.